So I was 15 years old and I got my first job. My first real job, my first job where I applied and I went and had an interview, sat down, and this job I was excited for was in a fast food place. All right. And so I remember early on, the thing that they had me do was a drink station. Now I'm going to date myself a little bit because, man, I'm getting old, right? So this is before. I'm going to date myself. This is before they had self-serve drink stations, just right before. So the person in the back had to pour your drink, and as you got your food, you would get your drink as well. And so besides the people in the dining area, in the dining lobby that would get their food and their drink, I had to also pour drinks for everybody in the drive-thru. And this was easy going. I'd come in before lunch. I'm thinking my schedule started at 10:30 or something like that. And they warm me up, and I would pour the drink. And so you look on the screen and the screen would say large Pepsi. You grab a large cup, put some ice in it, and then you pour the large Pepsi, put a lid. Here you guys go for dining room. Well, here's a drive-through order. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself, right? I'm sitting here and being able to do this. It's not rocket science, right? Until the lunch rush. And pretty soon my screen was filled with several drinks. And not just one drink per order, right? Because as we all know, we have our families, we have our friends, we have our boys who come out. And then you look and there is like every order has 4 drinks or more. And so I'm sitting there getting farther and farther behind. And so what people would do, their employees work around me. They say, we're not going to wait for you, Rodney. We're going to have to work around you and pour this drink while you're working on this order that, you're 10 orders behind. And then one time the manager said, hey, Rodney, go ahead and let Antonio take that over for you. Just kind of watch him a little bit and see how he does things. And I quickly learned something, right? You can pour more than one drink at a time. Like if there's a Pepsi and a Dr. Pepper and other drinks, I can pour more than one drink at a time. So I pretty soon learned how to do multiple drinks, but then this always happened. And to fast forward a little bit, as I got more experience, I saw this happen to every new person. It never failed. It became a joke. And I didn't know at the time on my first, second, or third day that they were making fun of me or laughing at me. I mean, they weren't being mean about it, but it was just commonly known that every new person spills at least one drink. You get in a rush and you're flustered and you're behind and you know it. You feel the pressure, right? Pressure in a fast food establishment. Can you believe it? So you feel the pressure. And so I knock over a drink and it goes all over the floor. And then what do? Do you clean it up? Do you get the mop? Do you let somebody else get it? So somebody else has to clean your mess as you're sitting there pouring drinks and getting behind. And so I grew frustrated. And I remember after about a month or so, because I didn't really know how to do much, and because I had dreams of working a lot of hours and only working maybe, 2 or 3 days a week, maybe 3 or 4 hours a day, only getting like 8 or 9 hours a week, I decided I was going to quit. So I called and said, I'm going to have to quit. This isn't working out. And so after that, I told my parents, I remember my dad. My dad said something very, very important that I remembered. He said, why would you quit and give up? Keep going, keep pushing, and then ask, if you want more hours, ask for more hours. Insist that you're important enough and that you're good enough that you can get more hours. Show them what you can do and keep going. Don't quit. And so I called back, had to kind of say like, hey, guess what? That whole thing about quitting, I was just kidding. Can I still work there? Oh, and by the way, can I get more hours? But in the end, it did end up working out for me, as I'll explain later. But today, in this podcast, I'm going to explain and explore the question, are millennials lazy? Welcome to the Rodney L Podcast. Okay, so today on the podcast, we're going to explore the question, are millennials lazy? And I don't want to generalize. I know a lot of millennials may get mad and get tired of hearing this whole thing about them being lumped in to this category or this topic of being lazy or being entitled. But again, it is a question that people have been asking. So I thought I would explore it a little bit and just kind of use my own experience, me being who I am as far as entrepreneurship and business. But just looking at this question about are millennials lazy and just kind of going into thinking about how I was when I was a teenager. I was the kind of person, and I said this in different podcasts, I planned out my 2 years of junior high school. I know some of you guys have 3 for middle school, but mine was 7th and 8th grade. And then my 4 years of high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and then you graduate. I had all 6 years planned when I was in elementary school. I had an older brother that had already went through junior high school. So I was able to look at his catalog and his schedule of classes. And then he went through high school, and I looked at that as well. And I saw what was required to go to the university system. And so I planned out all 6 years, wrote it out on paper, and had this plan. You see, I was one that wanted to really and I am this way, with goals and planning, and I just really wanted to be one that really got after it, And so, growing up as a child, and kind of going back to my childhood, I'm just exploring this question, are millennials lazy? Because I think there is a change. I think there is a shift that happened, and it probably happened with my generation because of the way we grew up. But going back, I remember that I was very blessed with playing outside. I remember football at the park. That was almost a daily thing. We would play in the street, and then if the other days we would play in the park, tackle football. It was fun. I was always the QB, and it was good playing with older kids. But that was fun. That was always something that we did. We rode bikes all around town. We had our bikes and we'd go for a bike ride, and we'd be out for hours. The whole thing about the rule, when the streetlights come on, you better be inside. Right. And so we played and we rode our bikes and we stayed outside and hung out with friends, all the exercise, running around, all that cardio. Right. I mean, people nowadays don't even like cardio. I remember all that cardio we did. Right. So this was something that was always done until I think something happened. And I think it didn't really affect us immediately. It didn't affect us until I think a lot of us became parents. And so this whole thing happened that it gave national attention, kind of 2 things. But the main thing was the kidnapping of a kid named Kevin Andrew Collins. This was back in 1984. And this was a year after Adam Walsh. I don't know if Adam was the kid. He got kidnapped. And his father started America's Most Wanted. That was on TV for years. But anyway, the Kevin Collins one got national attention. He was the first one that appeared on milk cartons, and posters went around, and it got national attention. He was kidnapped from San Francisco, and I believe he was about 10 years old. And so from that, because of media outlets, fear came in. And some people can disagree, because I think now what happens is a lot of those people who were kids, especially young kids back then in 84, who became parents, raised their kids a little differently, because media soon realize and news outlets realize that people will tune in when they scare you, when there's a fear factor, right? I mean, especially in California, those of you in California know that it doesn't rain a lot, but when it does, what do we have? Storm watch, right? Get all your news and be prepared for this storm. And then it comes and there's a little bit of rain, and we're like, what was all the hype about? But people in California, you get a drop on your windshield of water, and in a lot of areas you go crazy and accidents happen. We don't know how to drive in the rain. God forbids it snows, especially in Southern California. Anyway, I digress. So that happens, right? So I think there's a shift in this change now where kids are staying inside more. All that cardio that I got to do, a lot of kids may not, because there's things inside to entertain. And there's activities that take away from the cardio, unless you play sports. I can understand that. But I think that video games has really changed that. Now, when I was growing up, video game systems were not as advanced as they are now. I remember I was really young, but I remember the very first system that we got and that I seen was a game called Pong. Maybe you can look that up. Maybe you can Google that, YouTube that, see if you can see what Pong is. You guys will be amazed if you don't know what it is. I mean, two sticks and a pixel. And it was supposed to imitate tennis. And talk about a game that you would probably play for 5 minutes, and that's being generous, and then turn it off and do something else or play a different game. But that was state of the art back in the day, way back in the dark ages, right? And then from that, I mean, when Atari came out, the system called Atari, when Atari came out, the Atari 2600, oh my God, was that like the system to get? And I remember my parents got it, right? And then I was so happy that Christmas when my dad said, let's go ahead and get it. And I couldn't wait for Christmas to open up the Atari and to play Space Invaders and all those games, right? And so my parents, I remember when Pac-Man came out, they bought Pac-Man and they sent all our kids, with me and my brother and my parents' friends' kids. And they said, why don't you guys go to the store? Now, normally we'd be happy. We'd be happy about running to the store, buying whatever we want to buy. But this was to send us out the house so the adults can play the video game. And I remember just being so upset, right? But the thing about that was we didn't play for hours, due mostly to a lack of creativity of those games and what the games could do compared to what they do now. So we would play them for a little while, but still outside, playing football, riding bikes was king. And so now what happens with millennials is you have all of these games that come out and you play for hours. I mean, they are entertaining. I mean, I'm not saying that's a negative thing. I'm just saying there's a shift now as, those two things that happen with technology getting better, with video games getting better, with more things to do inside, with the inventions of things like the smartphone where you're more connected to people without actually having to go to their house and ring on their doorbell. Ding dong. Hey, can Johnny come out and play? Right? Okay. Things have changed. And so with that, I think that there's a certain thing with millennials now where you can have your snacks and have your chips and your soda and you're not working it off because you're playing video games and you're interacting with people through your smartphone. And it's not, again, it is what it is. I'm just stating what it is right now, laying a foundation for this. And then you add on to that schools. Now, I know there's a lot going on right now about how important school is. And I still, from my point of view and my preference, I think high school at a bare minimum is a requirement. Graduate high school. And I know there's people out there who may be listening who's saying like, come on, high school, it's a waste of time. I make more money now than teachers and this and that. And that may be true. But I think I think right now high school is still like getting that diploma is still the basis of everything that you may do. And I understand you may be making money good now. Kind of it's not even in my notes, but a side note is a lot of people haven't really experienced a recession, a crash. And when that happens, you're not making money. Can you imagine for a couple of years, not making money in the stock market, not making money as an entrepreneur because everybody is broke. Everybody's cutting back. Homes are being foreclosed on. Jobs are scarce. And they have to kind of pick who's going to get a job or not. I'm just saying, as a side note, think about that in the future. Good times may not last always. The economy is up and down. And so it's going to have a down time soon. Gary Vee even says the same thing. Listen to Gary Vee if you don't want to listen to what I'm saying. But anyway, schools, I will admit, they become less effective, right? Like college, degrees aren't worth like the weight as they used to because more people are getting them. With the whole thing about student loans where if you're breathing, you can have a student loan and go to school because schools are a business and a lot of schools became, in it for the money. So schoolwork got a little easier and it's easier to go to college. Degrees are being handed out. It's a little not worth as much as it used to be worth back in the day. Unless you're a professional, then it's necessary, then it's mandatory. So I'm talking about people who aren't going into like being a doctor or a lawyer or some kind of a professional engineer or something where you need a degree and skills. So, and again, I think college it's good. I have a bachelor's and I have a master's, and I eventually one day want to get my doctorate, or a PhD actually. But I digress. So I think you can make it without going to school. But my thing is this, like finish high school and then regardless of what you decide to do, have a plan. Just don't graduate and do nothing. And I think there's a lot of millennials who do that. I think there's a lot of millennials who are used to the video games, having fun, talking to their friends over game chats, and they just do nothing. And so I know, you think about Gary Vee. He's one that he did finish high school, but he talks about school and about how parents feel about school and what you should do. And I agree with him a lot. But the thing about Gary Vee, he has a plan in place, and he worked and worked and worked and built his business because of his work ethic. And I think that's what you need. And I think if you're going to drop out of high school or if you don't go to college, I know there is a lot of heat from parents. Do I want my kids to go to college? Yeah. Do I want them to go broke over it? No, not at all. And that's only because I think it's important that you learn how to learn, but I also understand it's not for everybody. And I know there may be pressure because I think parents wear that to where if their kid doesn't go to college, it seems like a failure on them. And that's something millennials have to navigate. But I do think that parents have a right to be a little upset or a little worried if you graduate and don't have a plan in place and you do nothing. And so if you look at the time now, this time in history, I think it is so easy to get ahead. It's so easy to be an entrepreneur. It's so easy to get non-conventional streams of income that is very beneficial for millennials. I mean, the concept of getting paid for being on YouTube, for making videos, for being on Twitch, for playing games. If you have a plan and you do something with it and you work and strive and you have the work ethic to make it work, it's amazing what you can do. I mean, I can imagine if I was still 17, 18, 19, that age, I would love this time of history. I would love the abilities and opportunities that we have now. It's just amazing. Because growing up, I mean, this is what I did. This is kind of like my grind that I had when I was growing up. And this is what I'm lacking because before I get into my grind, I'll tell you that I see all the positive things that you can do with the social media now and being an influencer and getting followers and getting YouTube subscribers and all of that. I can see the beneficial part of it, but I think a lot of people think it's this easy, that you're just going to throw a video on there and it should blow up. Because growing up, this is my grind, okay? In high school, I had my job I talked about, right? But I wanted more money, right? I wanted more. And I was trying to think, where can I squeeze more out? And so I said, you know what? I drive now. I'm going to have a paper route. And I'll be able to drive. I can do more houses. I can get pretty large routes. And so I picked up two routes that were available, mostly because, one of them, you needed a car. Like if somebody had a bike, it was in an area that was just being developed, and it was in the hills, a lot of gated communities spread out. And so it was perfect for me. So I would wake up early in the morning, fold papers. And paper routes wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have to fold the papers. That's the worst part. You fold, 300-400 papers every morning. That gets to you. But I would fold the papers, do the paper route, then go to school. Then after school, I was part of the Drumline, right? Drumline. Have you guys seen that Drumline movie? It's like that. And so I would be having marching band practice 3 days a week. And then on Saturdays, we would have competitions, where we wake up early on a Saturday morning, get on a bus, drive somewhere far, get off the bus, get in our uniforms, get in formation, wait, march a little bit, wait, drum competition, finish the route. Then we would change, probably have some lunch. Then we had our concert band competitions. Wait, and then you wait. We get another bite to eat or something. Then you have awards. Then you get on the bus, go home. Your day's over. And so I had that. So that was marching band. Then what I wanted to do, because my schedule was planned out and so full, and I was a musician, so my electives were band a lot. And so where was going to fit driver's ed? Because I wanted to drive, right? So I took it at adult school, 6:00 in the evening, where I would go and take driver's education. Now, that was only temporary, but I'm just talking about at the height of my grind. This is what I did. Then I had my job where I had to go to work. And I know the time frame's different because I got my job at 15. I wasn't driving yet, of course, but at this point, my driver's ed was already done. So because I got a job at like 15 and a half and I had my permit already. So anyway, work was involved in that. Then on Sundays, I played drums since I was in 6th grade for the church. Now, I don't know if you guys listening have experience with churches, but I can tell you for an African-American church, they go to church for a long time, right? So Sundays, 7:45 a.m. was the first service. That's right. You heard me. 7:45 a.m. Then 9:30, they had their Sunday school. Then at 11 was the second service. About 1:30, we'd get out, get a bite to eat. And a lot of times we visited other churches, or we had an afternoon program. Those guys know the African-American churches anniversary. They have a choir anniversary, second choir anniversary, pastor's anniversary, first time the church, was built anniversary. I mean, they have different programs, right? Usher board number 1, usher board number 2, annual day. I mean, they just celebrate any reason to think of celebrating, they celebrate it. So I played drums because the choir sang. And so my Sundays were toast as well. But again, that was my grind. I didn't have time to be lazy, But it paid off because what my dad said about working hard and having that work ethic, I was running shifts as a manager at 17. Wasn't supposed to. I was closing manager at 17 years old. I started working full-time, close to full-time at 17. I've always had an interest in real estate, and that's why I'm a broker now. But what I'm trying to say is this is where I think millennials get it wrong, and why I wanted to explore this question, are millennials lazy? It's because a lot have no drive. Some have no drive to drive. I mean, I got my license. It was a Wednesday. I was 16. It was my birthday. And I had scheduled an appointment when they opened. You're allowed to call 2 weeks ahead to make an appointment. I called 2 weeks ahead on the dot in the morning when they opened up. And I said, May 22nd, I want to take my driving test. When do you open? 8 o'clock. Is that the first appointment? Yes, I want to take it. I got it. At the earliest possible, the earliest time possible, I got my license, right? But millennials get it wrong because they have no drive, no motivation, like nothing to push them. There's no patience. Like the whole thing about, hey, I made a video. Why isn't it blowing up? Hey, I made an Instagram page. It's all about just followers, whatever I can do. Follow. Oh, engagement sucks. It's Instagram's fault. Their algorithm. And these things may be true, but like Gary Vee says, everything's your fault. Okay, the algorithm changed. Let me figure that out. All right, let me engage with people. Let me share and give good content out. They'll find you. Because we want things to come easy. And a lot of things, again, I think sometimes it's the parents' fault. I'm talking about my generation, is because of the upbringing, because of fear. Kids don't have to go anywhere. We'll pick you up. We'll take you here. We'll take you there. Don't ride your bike. You may get hit by a car. You may be kidnapped. This may be happen, And so pretty soon you're catered to. Then don't talk about sports. Here's your trophy. I know you're last, but we want to give everybody something. We don't want anybody to feel left out. There's helicopter parents. What? My kid was left out? I'm going down to that school and tell them, don't leave my kid out, right? It can be many different things with helicopter parents. I mean, even homeschools. Now, I don't want to bag on people who have, if you're homeschooled, that's fine. I'm not saying anything negative. But again, all these things didn't exist, right? And now you have these things that may make millennials lazy. But here, I don't want to make it 11. Here is where millennials get it right, because I don't want to make this all negative, right? Here's where they get it right. Is they embrace social media. I mean, millennials embrace it, use it, view it, everything. And that is huge, because that is the key. That's where success is now. I mean, millennials are committed to interacting through media, which makes the world smaller. Back when I was growing up, it was like, if you had a friend in a different country or different state, normally it was like you're a pen pal. You would write something on paper, right? You wouldn't even type it. I'm in text message. You write something on paper, you put it in a mailbox, they get delivered, they'd see it, they'd read it, then they would write something, send it back, right? So you're having conversations that take a week. Take a week just for an answer, if that, if even that soon. Right? That was a pen pal. But now with the internet, right? The reason why you didn't call is because the phone bill. They charge you for what they call long distance. If you're not in the same city, that's a long distance phone call. It costs more. Parents don't want to pay for that. So things have changed as far as over the internet. You can play a video game and chat to somebody in a different country, right? Things are so different. The world became smaller. That's where they get it right. That's where millennials get it right. That your reach and your influence is so much easier and so much stronger now. Use that. Get a plan and use that for the good. Embrace technological changes. They get it right from doing that. So what's my suggestion? What do I suggest now as I wrap this up? Is millennials, be patient. Things take time. It takes time to build your brand. It takes time to build your business, but you'll make it. I mean, the time is right. Just be patient and what will happen. Get the motivation, whatever motivates you to go, reach for that motivation, dig deep, because you'll get there. You'll get it. And get rid of the negative people or the people that tear you down or hold you back. Find mentors, people who have been there, people who are doing it. Find like-minded peers who are the same as you and embrace all of that, and you will succeed. So the question, are millennials lazy? That's something you have to look into the mirror and see for yourself and ask your question, are you lazy? And so I hope to have some entrepreneurs, some millennial entrepreneurs on the podcast in the next coming weeks. And I appreciate you guys joining us. I know this one was a little bit longer, but I did have some passion and some information to give out. So you guys, I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Thank you for joining me. This is Rodney O signing off. And thank you for tuning in to the Rodney O podcast.